our D102 assessment update. We just wanted to give you a quick look into some of the assessments that are coming and how we're really keeping the progress of students in front of us through the lens of community inclusion and engagement. We are assessing academically, but you'll also see that we're assessing the whole child. There's more to the students coming in than what's happening academically. That's absolutely important and we'll keep it in front of us. But we're also looking at making sure students are included and that we're assessing them appropriately depending on their linguistic and cultural backgrounds, as well as their social emotional needs. Looking at inclusion, one of the things that we do as far as assessment for our linguistically diverse students is we have language proficiency assessments that we give. These are required by the state of Illinois. We really use this information. In EC, you'll see an assessment called the Pre-IPT that's given to any student who comes in with another language at home. In kindergarten and the first semester of first grade, we give the model. There's actually been a new assessment released by WIDA. They anticipate adopting it sometime mid-year. So right now we're still giving the model for kindergarten and the first semester of first grade. The Access Screener happens the second semester of first grade through 8th grade. Those first three are all when new students come to us. The Access 2.0 we talk a great deal about in January. It is a state required assessment for all students in grades kindergarten through 8th grade who qualify for EL support. There's ongoing English language assessments that happen by the teachers. So the language proficiency screeners, what questions are we seeking to answer when we give these screeners? We really just want to know what the current level of English proficiency is as they enter school so that we can best plan instruction that includes all learners. We want to know how we can provide individual, targeted, and universal supports. So what we mean by that through the lens of inclusion is individual supports are for an individual student, something that benefits just that one student. Targeted supports benefit a group of students within a classroom, and universal supports, which are many EL strategies, qualify as universal supports. They're supports that we put in the classroom that benefit ELs especially, but they benefit all students in the classroom. Essential for ELs, but everyone benefits. Who's being assessed? All new students with another language at home in grades EC through 8, and then kindergarten through 8 on an annual basis. And how does this inform our practice? It really does inform how we support students who are English learners, but the way it's presented to us is through can-do descriptors. What can students do at the level of English proficiency that they currently are at, so that then we can tailor instruction that way. We're able to target that instruction to address language and content needs simultaneously. Of course, also aid in class building and grouping so that we make sure that we're supporting students adequately.
Understanding where our students are at socially, emotionally is a big part of our commitment as a community. So we wanted to go over a few of those measures that we use for that. These 5 are the ones that we tend to see the most used throughout the district. You're going to see a majority of them are focused on 4th through 8th, and even a couple that are 6th and up. The SABRs and the My SABRs are something that we use through our FastBridge assessment system. For our K3 students, it's something that a teacher would fill out if we're kind of maybe seeing any concerns, or if there's a parent that brought up an issue that they're having some concerns. That's more of a targeted assessment, where the My SABRs is something that we assess 4th through 8 for all students. It's a universal screening tool that we use to kind of understand and gauge every student across our district in that age. Same with our Panorama, which is more of a climate survey. It's something that we've given multiple years now. It gives us some very good data from kind of year to year. And then the Prevention and the Signs of Suicide are specific ones that are tied to curriculum that are used at the junior high in terms of SEL measures. And kind of what's the purpose of these? I think it's something that we value in District 102 is understanding this and supporting that. And so one of the ways that we know that we can support those is by having a good understanding of where our students are at in terms of the various measures that we can use. And so how are they feeling seen, known, and heard? Right? How are we connecting to them? And then how can we continue to support them? And so from the previous slide, you could see we have kind of various ways that we can go about measuring that, and various touch points and times of year that we can look into that. And essentially all that SEL data is reviewed by the various mental health professionals within each of our buildings. And then based on that determination, if there are students that are maybe more at risk for an issue, or there's something that's popping, we have kind of the various ways that we can approach that and support that. It also kind of can give us a more global response to things. If we're seeing some common responses within a survey, or we're seeing some trends, we can approach that more from a curriculum aspect or from a grade level or a building aspect of how we may support something in terms of an SEL support.
So I'm going to talk to you about the academic assessments. The biggest academic assessment we're going to talk about first, though, is what Dr. Hudson would always call a required opportunity.
Thanks.
So we're sharing it with you now, and then we're going to send something home to families this week. Mrs. Temez sent home last week an update to families that students at the junior high would be taking the Illinois Assessment for Readiness. And then our students at Meridian will also be taking that assessment in the coming weeks. So we delayed taking this assessment in the spring because we wanted to prioritize bringing children back into the building. And we didn't want to disrupt the flow of learning, and we wanted to make sure that all students felt like there was a consistency and a routine, and state testing was not going to help us achieve that. But it being a required opportunity, we do have to take it this fall. So what that means is fourth graders take their third grade test and fifth graders take their fourth grade test, et cetera, et cetera. We just did our very first one at the junior high today. And because we're taking it in a window other than when we normally take it, this year, this fall, we're taking it on the iPads. We've normally always taken it on the Chromebooks, and we want to see how it's going to go on the iPads. So this gives us an ideal opportunity to really do it in sort of a low stakes space, just because there's so many other external factors that would impact the results we would receive from this. That what a great time to just, kind of do it and not really stress about kind of what comes back from that. Biggest things is these measure our performance in science normally at fifth grade and eighth grade. And then also they measure our reading and our mathematics. So because we want to prioritize in-person learning and connections with adults and all the good stuff that we're trying to return back to, our fourth and fifth graders are just going to take the IAR this fall. So we're delaying the MAP assessment till the winter. And the reason for that is because we just don't want to eat up so much testing time, and we don't need the fall MAP results for anything. When I say that we don't need them for anything, because we didn't take the fall MAP assessment last year, we won't be able to measure any year-over-year growth using the fall assessment. So the first year-over-year growth we'll be able to measure is in the winter. And that's the main purpose of a MAP assessment, is to measure students' year-over-year growth. And we have other diagnostic assessments, both within the workshop through conferring, through leveled reading work, running records work. We have a system called FastBridge. Mr. Treacy will talk more about what we have on hand so that nobody's losing out on any data. The biggest thing that we ever look at as an IR are large trends. So you want to watch cohorts. So how does last year's third grade perform this year's fourth graders? And what kind of predictions are we making about how they might perform as fifth, sixth? Did this cohort perform differently than previous fourth grade cohorts? Was something different or unique? Is fifth grade consistently performing better than third grade? What happens in fifth grade that we might be able to replicate? So that's really what state testing can sort of shine a light on for you. Other than that, it's too big to really get into data that's really actionable and responsive to where a teacher would be working with it. So it's good district level data. That's how we really use that to inform our practice. And then the MAP testing around the benchmarking, again, that's year-over-year growth that we look for. And that's a fantastic test because it's norm referenced, which means we can compare students to sort of large populations, and we can compare them as an individual to that large population. So that's a great value add of that. The better value add of it is that we can see how a student individually grows over time. That's really where we find value in a MAP assessment, is we find value in the consistency of performance over time. Are they performing in a consistent percentile over time, as well as are they making expected growth gains? That's what allows us to do some real targeted intervention. So that's why I said that year over year is really what we want to look at in a MAP assessment. So we're okay not giving it in the fall. The last thing is the specific areas that we target with big assessments really are still limited to reading and mathematics. We don't have deep ones in social studies. We don't have deep ones in performing arts. So really when we talk about these kinds of state level snapshots, we're really just talking about reading and mathematics. for students, not long form writing or poetry or anything creative. It's just a narrow snapshot of what we value in our students holistically. Even despite all the messiness and ridiculousness of last year, our students still were able to meet their expected growth. And if you know anything about our district, that's a pretty tremendous accomplishment to just do that any year. To be able to do that last year, I think speaks volumes to everything.
Another assessment system that we use throughout the district called FastBridge. FastBridge has a various number of assessments in literacy and numeracy, as well as in SEL. So I spoke a little bit about some of those that we use in a different setting. But one of the nice things about a system like FastBridge is it allows us to be very targeted in what we're kind of looking for. For example, at a K-1-2 setting, where we tend to use it the most, it has assessments from something as simple as number ID or letter name, letter sound. Currently, we're using FastBridge as a main diagnostic assessment in our EC through second grade. That's kind of where we're able to really target students' number sense, students' ability to develop those early literacy skills that are really important. And so we can kind of measure those and see where there is an appropriate place, if there's individualized support that needs to happen, as well as if there's more of a global approach that we need to look at from a curricular standpoint. It is also used as our main progress monitoring tool for students who are in tiered intervention, so tier 2 and tier 3 that are working with interventionists or classroom teachers on targeted intervention, as well as students with IEPs, as they are progress monitored on a weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly basis to measure growth towards a goal. That's either written in an IEP or something that's written in a MTSS or an intervention plan. So that tends to be the main tool that we use both at the EC2 level as well as EC through 8 as a progress monitoring measure. One of the key aspects of kind of as we look at assessments in this fall specifically is understanding everything that our teachers do on a daily basis and on a weekly and a monthly basis to understand the learning that's happening in their setting. The idea of summative and formative classroom assessments, guiding instruction and helping teachers make decisions on both in the minute as they're scanning a classroom and understanding how their lesson is being taken in from their students to a more global summative one that may be giving them kind of feedback on a unit or a bend is something that might be a little bit longer. The idea that these are really key to informing our instruction more so than the assessments we talked about earlier. The assessments we've been talking about tend to be much more global, almost a couple times a year, where these are the types of assessment, these formative and summative types of assessment are what our teachers are doing on a daily basis to understand learning that's taking place, to understand the impact of instruction and both that is working and sometimes it's not working and making adjustments as they go. So this really is, I think, where you see us wanting to grow some of the toolbox. One of the salts being an assessment salt this year and really understanding kind of some of the tools that we can have at our fingertips in order to guide some of those instructional decision-making types of processes. As well as I think just some of the expertise that our teachers have as they're getting students back in the classroom and the really the in the moment, the day-to-day, the minute-by-minute decisions they're making that they probably don't even realize half the time as they kind of look across and scan across the room and see the impact that their instruction is having on students.
To recap, we're doing the spring IR right now in the fall, and then the spring 22 IR assessment, we'll do that March, April. MAP assessment, we'll do that November, December. Then we'll do the last one in May. So that'll give us 2 year-over-year growth elements. So that'll be a really nice one for that. Access, always late January through February. FastBridge assessments, we'll give one September, October, and then again in the spring. And then Kindy, we do one in winter, spring. We do something called the kids assessment for the fall in kindergarten. That's a state required opportunity. The Illinois science assessment, we do it 5th grade and 8th grade. The big takeaway I would share with you is if we think that learning and growth is a system, then assessment is simply feedback loops within that system. And we want feedback loops to be balancing because that's what keeps a healthy system and not reinforcing. And so those diagnostic assessments, those are moments for us to identify leverage points to keep the system in balance. And those summative assessments and those larger assessments we take, those are the ones that allow us to see how the system is evolving to stay balanced as it progresses towards its goal. And that's really just how we use assessment. And it comes at different sizes and layers and lenses, microscopic to 10,000 foot bird's eye view.